Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Rita from Crossbody Meve, and in today's tutorial I will be showing you how to sew the breeze handbag by Eva from Meve sewing pattern. This is such a beautiful, classy, stylish design. In the front you have this diagonal slip pocket, and in the back there is also a slip pocket. You have the top zipper panel, and inside there's a zipper pocket and another slip pocket. On the sides, you have your D-ring connector attached to the side gusset, and on the bottom, there's the bottom gusset. The way in which we will be sewing the gusset to the bag is something that the designer herself came up with, and I think you're going to really like the way it all comes together. There's a crossbody stripe, and in the pattern, she gives you option for a crossbody, shoulder, or a handle stripe. The design also comes in two sizes, the large and small. For today's tutorial, I will be sewing the small size. If you want to purchase this pattern, I will have a link in the description below. Timestamps are also in the description below, so if you want to skip to any section in this tutorial, just click right on the link and it's going to take you directly to that section. Okay, are you ready? Let's get started. In this section, we will be going over fusing and prep. Before we do so, I just want to go over these pieces I have here because I have cut these differently than what's in the pattern. For my D-ring connector, I'm going to be using 1/2 inch D-ring. So my connector is 1 inch by 5.5 inches. I have decreased my width and increased my length. For the crossbody stripe, I'm using 1/2 inch swivel hook. So my width for my crossbody stripe is 2 inches and my length is 48 inches. Now for the zipper panel, in the pattern you're cutting full pieces. I am going to be doing my zipper panel a little differently than the pattern, and to do that I only need 2 pieces for my panel. To get the width of one of these pieces, what you want to do is double the width that she gives you in the pattern and then add 1/2 inch to the total. The height is going to stay the same. For this piece, this is a slip pocket trim because I like adding that trim to the top of my slip pocket. This piece is 1 inch by 8.5 inches, and this is not in the pattern. Now it's time to fuse our pieces. First, you want to fuse woven interfacing to all your cotton pieces. Then you're going to grab your front and back main exterior pieces. You're going to place these wrong sides up. Draw a line 1/2 inch away from the top of these pieces. Add your digger V stabilizer right below that line, center from the sides, and fuse. You're going to do the same thing for your top contrast. Draw a line 1/2 inch away from the top of these pieces. Center your digger V stabilizers from the sides and fuse. Same for your gusset base. Draw a line 1/2 inch away from the top, and for your gusset base you're going to use the digger V heavy stabilizer. Center from the sides and fuse. Side gusset, same thing, 1/2 inch away from the top, center from the sides, and fuse your digger V light stabilizer. One thing you might find helpful to do is to mark your bottom gusset, the base, from your top, because these pieces are the same size and it's easy to confuse them because your gusset base is fused with digger V heavy, while the top contrast they're fused with digger V light. So just kind of mark these 3 pieces just to make sure you know which one you're using when the time comes. And then another thing we want to fuse, if you are going to be doing your zipper panel like I'm going to do in this tutorial. I like adding digger V light to my zipper panel because I just like that structure stability it gives it. So you're going to cut a digger V light that is 1 inch by 8.5 inches. And then you want to come down 1 inch from one of the short raw edges. Add your digger V light right below that line, center from the sides, and fuse. In this section, we will be going over the D-ring connector and the crossbody strap. First, grab your D-ring connector, and you're going to place this wrong sides up. You want to draw a line down the center parallel to one of the long raw edges and add a piece of double-sided tape on that line. And then we're going to fold both long edges to that center line we drew. Next, you want to leave your D-ring connected wrong side up and then draw a line 2 inches away from one of the short raw edges. And then you're going to add pieces of double-sided tape at those short raw edges. Now grab your D-ring and you're going to thread that onto your connector. And then you want to fold both short edges to that line. Then you're going to flip your connector to the right side, and then you want to draw a line 1.5 inches away from the bottom folded edge here. Once you're done drawing your line on your connector, you're going to set these pieces aside for now. Then grab your crossbody stripe and we're going to stabilize this piece. I use cross grain ribbon because I find it's easier than using the Gavelle Light, but you can totally use the Gavelle Light if you want. And this is a 3/8 of an inch cross grain ribbon. So what you want to do is place your crossbody stripe wrong side up, draw a line down the center away from one of your long raw edges, and then add a piece of double-sided tape along one of the long raw edges. And that's where we're going to add the ribbon. Once you're done adding your ribbon, what you want to do is add a piece of double-sided tape over your center line. And now we need to fold both long edges to that line. And don't go directly to the line, okay? Leave a little bit of space in between those two edges. Next, you want to add a piece of double-sided tape in the middle of one of those folded edges. You can totally skip adding the double-sided tape and just fold your edges together and clip all along, okay? But I like using double-sided tape, so that's what I did. Now you want to take this to your machine and you want to tap stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance along both long edges. Once you're done tap stitching along your stripe, the next step is to punch the holes for your rivet. And because I'm not going to be using those decorative stripe ends to hide the raw edges for my stripe, I'm going to punch my holes closer to those raw edges. So to do that, we're going to come in 1/4 inch from the short raw edge, and we just want to find the center and place a dot. Then we're going to take this our punch and punch the hole for the rivet. Once you're done punching the hole for your rivet, make sure your stripe is wrong side up. You're going to draw a line 2¼ inches away from that short edge. All right, now you're going to fold your short edge to that line and then transfer your rivet hole. Now you want to take this back to your press and punch the hole for your rivet. Both our holes have been punched, and now what you can do is to edge pin the raw edges if you like. And then you're going to grab your swivel hook, thread that through, fold your end, and then you're going to set your rivet. Now you just want to repeat the same step to add your swivel hook and your rivet to the other end. Okay, very quickly, if you are adding a strap in to hide your raw edges, what you want to do for your rivet hole is to come in 1/2 inch, place a dot in the center of your stripe, and you're going to punch the hole for your rivet. Once your hole's been punched, then you're going to come in 2.5 inches. Again, make sure your strap is wrong sides up. You come in 2.5 inches and draw a line. Then you're going to fold your edge to that line, transfer your rivet hole, and punch it. Once your holes have been punched, what you're going to do is grab your swivel hook, thread that on. But before you set your rivet, add your stripe end, screw that in place, and then fold that end to that line, and then set your rivet. In a section, we will be working on the exterior front and back slip pockets. First, I'm going to work on the front slip pocket, and then we're going to do the back slip pocket. Let's add the magnetic snaps to our front pocket. Grab your front pocket lining piece, and we want to transfer the placement mark onto this piece. So you're going to lay this wrong side up. Grab your paper pattern piece, place that on top, and then transfer the dot onto your lining piece. Then you want to grab the washer, place this washer right on top of that dot. The circle here, the center of the washer, you want to place that right on top of that dot, center that, and then transfer the holes here for your prongs. Once that is done, you're going to grab something like your seam ripper, and you want to cut that slit. All right, that is done. And then I have also cut open a slit on a piece of Gussets heavy because I'm going to use this to stabilize my snap. Now you want to grab the middle portion of your snap, and that's how that looks. And you're going to come from the front, put your prongs through, and then at the back, add your Gussets heavy. All right, now grab your washer, put that on top. And then lay your prong down. And at this point, I'm just going to add a piece of double-sided tape over those prongs. I know some people use painter's tape or duct tape, but I don't have either of those, so this will do. And this is how that looks at the front. And I've added my snap prior to putting my pocket pieces together because the snap is so far down from the top that it is not going to get in the way when I'm putting the pocket pieces together. All right, grab your exterior pocket piece. You're going to put these two pieces right sides together. Clip at the top here. We're going to take this out machine to sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance from the top raw edge. Next, we want to fold both pieces wrong sides together and finger press at the seams. And what I do is to align my bottom raw edges because I want to make sure those are matching up. So I'm going to align those and put clips on them. All right, now I'm going to go to the top and finger press the folds. All right, now we're going to take this back to our machine. I want a top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance from the top folded edge. Top stitching is done. Now we need to install the female portion of our snap to the front exterior. So we're going to put the front exterior, lay that right side up. At this point, you can use your paper pattern piece, place that on top, and transfer your snap placement. What I do is to use my pocket piece to transfer my mark. because with cutting and sewing, sometimes things get a little off, and I want to make sure my snaps are going to match. So I'm going to lay this on top, a line at the bottom here, and I'm going to clip it. At this point, what I do is lift this up, and I'm going to use this silver marking tool, and I find this works well to mark just the top of the middle snap here. And I'm just going to press down, and when I lift this up, it should leave a mark. I'm going to take this off and just wipe that off. Now grab your washer. You're going to place that. Again, make sure the center of the washer is over that mark. And then transfer the marks for your prong. And then cut a slit. Now grab your female portion of your snap, and that's how that looks. And you're going to put that through from the right side. Flip this over to the wrong side, and even though I have Diggerville light, I'm still going to use a piece of Diggerville heavy to stabilize my snap. So I'm going to put that on and grab your washer, put that on top, and then pull that down. All right, again, I'm going to use a piece of double-sided tape and just put that on top of it. All right, now turn this to the right side. Grab your pocket piece, snap in place, and just align your edges. Take this back to your machine and base your sides and bottom at a 1/8 seam allowance. Now it's time to work on our back slip pocket. Grab those pieces. First, get the lining. The back pocket lining. You're going to place this right side up and transfer your placement mark. So you'll grab the paper piece, put that on top, and transfer your mark. I'm actually going to be installing a riveted magnetic snap to my back slip pocket. The steps for this is different from the steps to install the regular magnetic snap. So if you're doing the regular ones, go ahead and follow those steps we did prior to install your snaps. So to install your riveted magnetic snap, first you're going to punch the hole for your rivet. And then you're going to place your lining and your exterior right sides together. Clip at the top. And you're going to take this to your machine and sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance from that top raw edge. All right, now we're going to fold both pieces wrong sides together and finger press at the seam. Again, I'm going to match up my bottom raw edges here. And then finger press. Now we're going to take this back to our machine and top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance from the top folded edge. Top stitching is done, and because I want my cap to show on the exterior, I've gone ahead and punched a hole through to the exterior. Now I'm going to grab my snaps, the middle portion, and that's how that looks for the riveted magnetic snap. And that's the cap and the middle portion. I'm also going to be using the Diggerville heavy to stabilize it. So I'm going to turn this to the lining side, grab the middle portion, put it through the lining, open that up, add the Diggerville heavy, and then I'm going to pass this through to the exterior, grab the cap, put it on, take this to my press, and set the snap. Middle portion has been installed. That's how that looks on the lining side, and this is the cap on the exterior side. And now we need to install the female portion. So grab your back exterior. You're going to place this right side up. Again, you can use your paper piece, place that on top, and transfer your snap placement. But I'm going to use my pocket piece to guide me to where I need to put that. All right, so I'm going to place this on top, aligning my edges. Lift that up and use my marking pen here. Press down, lift that up, and there's the mark to where I need to place my snap. Right now I'm going to take this to my punch and punch the hole for the rivet for the snap. Our hole is punched on our exterior back piece. Up our snap, the female portion, and that's how that looks with the cap. And I'm going to be using the Give It Heavy again to stabilize. So you're going to go from the front, from your right side, grab your female piece, put that through your punched hole, turn it to the back, add your Give It Heavy, and then grab your cap, pull that on top, take it to your press, and set your snap. The female portion of your snap is installed. That's the back. The front, grab your back pocket piece, snap that in place, align your edges. You're going to take this back to your machine and just baste in place at a 1/8 seam allowance along the sides and the bottom. We're done basting around our back slip pocket, and this is how that looks. And here is the front slip pocket. In this section, we will be working on the exterior gussets and then completing the bag exterior. So grab your gusset pieces. This is the base and the 2 side panels. You're going to grab one of the side panels, place that right sides together with the base. Make sure you're aligning all your edges. You're going to clip this, take this to your machine, and you're going to sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance from the short raw edge. Once you're done sewing these 2 pieces together, you're going to open your seam here, turn this to the right side, finger press, and then take this back to your machine and top stitch both sides of the seam at a 1/8 seam allowance. Or once you're done top stitching, you're going to grab your other side gusset piece and follow the same steps to attach it to your base. All right, with your 2 side panels attached to your base, what you want to do is find the center on both sides of your base piece. So just fold this in half. And what I do is to match up my seams here and then mark my centers. Okay, next we want to add our D-ring connector to our gusset side piece. So you're going to come down, lay your gusset piece right side up, and you're going to draw a line 1 inch away from one of the short raw edges. Another thing you want to be mindful of when you place your connector down is to center it from the sides. All right, then grab one of your D-ring connector. Remember, we did this in the prior step. You're going to turn this to the wrong side and add a piece of double-sided tape at the back. And then we're going to place this wrong side down on our gusset. You want to make sure the top here, where your D-ring is, that top, you want to make sure that is aligned with that 1 inch mark. Once you're satisfied with the placement of your D-ring connector, you're going to take this to a machine and you're going to sew this connector to your piece at a 1/8 seam allowance. You're going to start at the bottom here, go up, and remember that line we placed earlier. You're going to stop there, pivot, sew across, stop, pivot, and sew down. Do not backstitch, leave long tails, pull to the back, and tie those off. Once you're done sewing your connector to your piece, you're going to place a dot in the center of your connector for your rivet. So you want to come up a 1/4 inch away from this stitch line. Take this to your press, punch the hole for your rivet, and set your rivet. All right, so we're done with this connector, and now you just want to follow the same steps to attach the other D-ring connector to this end of your gusset. Next up is to add this gusset piece to our back and front exterior pieces. Grab your front exterior piece and you're going to find the centers on the top and the bottom. And you want to do the same for your back exterior. Find the centers on the top and the bottom. Now with your front exterior right side up, we're going to add double-sided tape at that bottom raw edge. Grab your gusset piece and you're going to place this right side down, matching up your center mark and aligning your long edges. I'm actually going to turn it this way. All right, now we're going to take this to our machine, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to sew this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance from the long raw edge. When we do, we want to start right in that seam. So you're going to put your needle down right into that seam, sew all along, and then you want to end right in that seam. Now that we're done sewing the straight long edge, we're going to do the sides. So go ahead and add double-sided tape at those side edges. Lay your side gusset down, and you want to start at the top here to make sure that is aligned. On the sides here, aligning your edges as you go down. And then once you come down to this corner, you're going to lift this up. You just want to ease that in. Just like that. This is what we're going to do. We're going to start sewing from the top at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And as we come down to the corner here, right before you get to that seam, you're going to stop, pivot, sew, and end your stitching in that seam. So as I'm coming closer to that seam, I'm going to hand crank because I want to be like 1 stitch away before I pivot. All right, now I'm going to leave my needle down, lift my presser foot, and I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to make sure that I stop right in that seam. All right, I need to go 1 more. So I'm going to pivot here slightly. All right. I'm going to back stitch. All right. We're done with this side, and now we need to do this end. We go to the machine, there are 1 or 2 ways you can sew this side of your gusset. You can either start from here, same as we did over here, and then once you're like 1 stitch away from that seam, stop with your needle down, pivot, and end in that seam. Or you can start sewing from down here. So you're going to put your needle directly into the seam, take a stitch, stop, pivot, and then sew across. And I think that's how I'm going to sew this. It's time to add our back exterior to the gusset. So we're going to grab the back exterior, lay this right side up, add a piece of double-sided tape at that bottom raw edge. We're going to grab our front piece and we're going to place this right side down, matching up the center and aligning our edges. This is a little trickier to do, but just take your time. Then we're going to take this sewing machine and we're going to sew from this end because we want to put our needle like we did for the front. We're going to put our needle down into that same stitch. Sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance and end in that same stitch. All right, with that done, we're going to follow the steps to attach the side gussets to the side of your bag exterior. Our bag exterior is done. At the top, I have opened up the seam allowances and then trim off the corners. You can also trim off the sides and bottom seam allowances if you want. Now put this aside for now. Do not turn right sides out. We will leave this as it is, wrong sides out. In this section, we will be working on the interior zipper and slip pockets. Let's do the slip pocket first. Something I forgot to mention when I was talking about the pieces I cut differently is the interior slip pocket piece. If you're following along and want to do your slip pocket the same way I am doing mine, you're going to cut that piece, the width of that piece, you're going to cut 8 inches, and the length, you're going to cut that 8.5 inches. Then you're going to grab your slip pocket piece, place that wrong side up, draw lines 1/2 inch away from both of the long raw edges. Now you want to add double-sided tape at the end of those long raw edges. We're going to fold those long edges to the line we drew. Next, you want to add double-sided tape at that top raw edge and fold your piece wrong sides together, making sure you are aligning your top edge. Then grab your slip pocket trim and you're going to place this wrong side up. Draw a line down the center away from one of your long raw edges and then add a double-sided tape right below that line. Then grab your slip pocket and you're going to place this wrong side down right below that line. Then add piece of double-sided tape at the top of that slip pocket trim. Fold this down, just making sure you're aligning your edges. Take this to a machine and you're going to top stitch at a 1 inch seam allowance from that bottom raw edge. Once you're done top stitching, you're going to trim off these ends so that they're even with your slip pocket. And then one thing you can do is, before adding this to your lining piece, you can draw a line down the center to divide your slip pocket into 2 equal halves. For me personally, I want a smaller space for my eyeglasses and then a bigger space. So I've drawn a line down the side here, so not directly in the center. Grab your lining piece. First, find the center, so fold this in half and mark the center at the top. Then you want to come down 1 inch and you can draw a line. For me, I just add my ruler. Now grab your slip pocket and you're going to place this wrong side down. You just want to make sure you're centering from the sides. All right, that looks good. And then we're going to clip this. Now we're going to take this sewing machine and sew out a 1/8 seam allowance starting at the top, go down, across, and then follow the line. If you drew a line to divide up your slip pocket, you're going to follow that line and then sew back down, sew across, and then sew back up. Our slip pocket is done. Now it's time to work on the zipper pocket. Grab your interior lining, find a center. So you're going to fold this in half and find a center at the top. And then we're going to transfer the markings. So you're going to turn this on the wrong side, place your paper pattern piece on top, and transfer those lines. All right, so before I cut out my lines here, what I do is draw lines 1/2 inch away from the center line here on both sides. And that just helps with placement when we're folding those edges down. Next, you want to cut out that center line and the triangle at the ends. Add double-sided tape at the triangles and along both long edges. And now we're going to fold both triangles down, and then for the long edges, we're going to fold those to the lines we drew. All right, looks like I went a little too far when I was cutting that center line, but it should be okay. So don't do like I did, okay? Don't cut through that. At this point, you can add some fridge check at the corners. All right, now grab your zipper and you're going to place this right side up and add double-sided tape at those long raw edges. Then grab your lining and you're going to place this wrong side down, centering your zipper within that window. You want to turn this to the wrong side and add a piece of double-sided tape at the bottom edge of the zipper. You're going to grab your zipper pocket and you're going to place this right side down, aligning the short raw edge to the bottom edge of your zipper. Flip this to the right side. You want to take this to your machine and top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance from that bottom folded edge. So you're going to start 1/8 of an inch away from that end, all the way, and then end 1/8 of an inch away. Do not back stitch. You're going to pull your threads to the back and tie off. Top stitching is done, and I have pulled my threads to the back and tie those off. So if your piece wrong side up, you're going to add a piece of double-sided tape at that bottom seam. All right, then you're going to pull your zipper pocket down and just press at that fold. Add a piece of double-sided tape at that top zipper edge. Bring the bottom edge of your zipper pocket up and align with that top edge of your zipper. Flip this to the right side. I'm going to take this machine. I'm going to top stitch along the 3 other edges. So we're going to start from here. Remember, do not back stitch, leave long tails. You're going to put your needle down in that stitch, 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, top stitch up, across, and then end in that stitch, leaving long tails to pull to the back and tie off. Top stitching is done, and I have pulled my threads to the back and tied those off. Before we sew down the sides of the zipper pocket, we're going to open the bottom here because we need to leave an opening for the lining when the bag is done, so we can put the lining through that to close it up. So grab scissors and just cut open at the bottom. We're going to take this machine and we're going to sew down the sides. And as we come to the bottom here, we're going to stop 1/4 of an inch down from the bottom, pivot, sew about 1 inch in, pivot, and sew up. And we're going to do the same for the other side. Okay, so what you want to do next is to trim off your seam allowance, but do not trim off the opening. Both the zipper pocket and the slip pocket is done. In a section, we will be working on the zipper panel and then adding that on the interior linings. The way I'm going to be sewing this panel is something that I first saw in a pattern by Erica from Lavender and Twan. And Raven from Love Lola also has a video tutorial on her YouTube channel, so check that out. Now let's work on our zipper panel. These are the 2 pieces we're going to need along with our zipper. At the back, we've drawn a line 1 inch in and fused Stick-A-Fil light at one of the short raw edges. We're not going to fuse Stick-A-Fil light on this side. And we've done the same on the other piece. Now what we want to do is draw another line on the opposite end 1 inch in. We're going to add double-sided tape at those raw edges, the short raw edges, and fold those short raw edges to the lines we drew. Then you want to flip your piece to the right side, and as you do so, make sure the side with your Stick-A-Fil light is pointing to your left. Then you're going to come in 9.5 inches from this side without the Stick-A-Fil light stabilizer and place marks on both sides of your piece. So 9.5 inches. All right, with your zipper panel still right side up, you're going to add double-sided tape at that bottom raw edge, ending at that 9.5 inch mark. Grab your zipper. You're going to place marks 3/4 of an inch away from that end on both sides. And what you want to do is pinch at that mark and turn your zipper on an angle. You can either hand sew this or put a pin in it. And we'll do the same for the other side. Now grab your zipper. And you're going to place this wrong side down, aligning your zipper edge here to the edge of your zipper panel, and that end of your zipper to that 9.5 inch mark. Now you want to add a piece of double-sided tape at that bottom zipper edge. Then you want to fold the end of your zipper panel right sides together and align those folded edges. Now we're going to take this to our machine and we're going to sew at a 3/8 seam allowance away from that bottom raw edge. Once you're done sewing, trim off the extra zipper tip that's poking out. And then we're going to trim off just a little bit at the top here. And then at the bottom, we're going to trim slightly the folded edges so that it's less bulky when we go to top stitch. So you just peel that if you use double-sided tape. And that folded edge is where you're going to trim just on an angle. And then you do the same on the other side. Next, we're going to fold our zipper panel wrong sides together, finger press and top stitch. Again, when I'm doing this, I like to match up my raw edges first so that I know they're going to be aligned. And make sure you poke at this corner here. And then what you can do for this buck here is if you have a key fob plier or something similar, just push down on there to flatten your seams. And that just makes it easier when you go to top stitch. Then we're going to take this back to our machine and we're going to top stitch all around our zipper panel at a 1/8 seam allowance. With top stitching done, grab the other zipper panel, place that right side up, again making sure the Deckerville light stabilizer side is pointing to the left. And this time we're going to add the double-sided tape at the top raw edge, ending at that 9.5 inch mark. Now you want to grab your zipper panel with the attached zipper and you're going to place this wrong side down, aligning the long raw edges and making sure your folded edges at the bottom here are matching up. And I find it helpful to do this from the wrong side. So I'll just turn my piece like so and align my folded edges first. And I'm going to flip this back to the right side and then align the long raw edges. Next, we're going to add double-sided tape at that zipper long edge. At this point, it might be helpful to unzip your zipper before folding down your zipper panel. Then we're going to grab the edge of our zipper panel. We're going to fold this right sides together, making sure we're aligning our folded edge at the bottom here. And then we're going to take this to our machine and we're going to sew at a 3/8 seam allowance away from our top raw edge. Once we're done sewing, we're going to follow the same steps we did for this side of the zipper panel to top stitch this side. We are done with our zipper panel. Now mark the centers on both sides. So you're just going to fold this in half and then add a clip or use a marking tool. Grab one of your interior lining pieces, and if you haven't done so already, mark the center at the top. Now you're going to place this right side up and add a piece of double-sided tape at that top raw edge. Now grab your zipper panel. You're going to place this top of your zipper panel wrong side down, matching up your centers and aligning your edges. All right, now you add a piece of double-sided tape at that edge of your zipper panel. Grab one of your top contrasts, and if you haven't done so already, fold in half and find the centers on both sides. Now you're going to take that piece and you're going to place this right side down on top of your zipper panel here, matching up your centers and aligning your raw edges. Then we're going to take this to our machine, sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance from that top raw edge. Once we're done sewing this, finger press that seam allowance down towards the bottom. And just finger press at that seam here. Now we're going to take this to our machine, top stitch just through the lining piece at a 1/8 seam allowance. Okay, next we're going to grab our other interior lining piece and place this right side up. Again, find your center if you haven't done so already at the top, and then add a piece of double-sided tape at that top raw edge. Grab your zipper panel, and you're going to place this wrong side down, matching up your center and aligning your raw edges. And then we're going to add a piece of double-sided tape at that top zipper panel edge. All right, now you want to grab the other top contrast, and if you haven't done so already, go ahead and mark the centers on both sides. Now you're going to place this piece right side down on your zipper panel, matching up your centers and aligning your edges. Then we're going to take this on machine and we're going to sew out a 1/4 inch seam allowance from the top raw edge. Once we're done sewing, we're going to open this up, finger press our seams towards the bottom. Take this back to our machine and top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance through the lining. Okay, our top stitching is done, and we have added the zipper panel to our lining. In this section, we will be working on the lining gussets and adding that to the interior lining. To sew our lining gussets, we will be following the same steps we did for the exterior gussets. So we have our base piece and the 2 side panels. You'll grab one of your side panels, place that right sides together, aligning your edges, and then sew this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance from the short raw edge. Turn to your right side, open up your seams and top stitch, and then do the same to add the other side gusset to the other end of your base piece. Now find the centers on both sides of your piece by folding in half and either clipping or using the marking tool. Now grab your lining with the panels already attached and then open up your zipper because that just makes it easier. Place one of your lining pieces right side up, and you want to add a piece of double-sided tape at the bottom raw edge. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and clip the center to mark it at the bottom. Then grab your gusset piece and you will place this right side down, matching up your centers. Now we need to take this machine and sew out a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Remember how we added the exterior gussets to our exterior pieces? The same idea, the same steps. The only difference for this one piece is we're going to leave a turning hole for our bag. So instead of sewing the entire way through, we're going to start in the same stitch here and about an inch or so. Start in the same stitch and about an inch or so, just to leave that turning hole. Once we're done at the bottom, here is our turning hole. We're going to add double-sided tape at the sides, fold our side panels down, and we'll do the same thing we did for the exterior to sew that down. Your side panels will be taller than the lining, and that's fine. All you'll do at the end is trim at the top. So because our side panel is going to be taller than the lining, you want to start aligning from the bottom here. And that's how that looks over here. And like I said, that's fine. We're going to trim off at the end. Just make sure as you're adding the other side panel that your zipper is out of the way. All right, we will take this machine and sew our side panels to the lining exactly like we did for the exterior. All right, we're done adding one of our lining pieces to the gusset, and then you just turn this over and trim off at the top here. Now we need to add this lining piece to our gusset. Find a center at the bottom if you haven't done so already. Then leave your piece right side up and add a piece of double-sided tape at that bottom raw edge. One thing you want to be mindful of before you add your pieces together is that your zipper is not twisted. So what I do is zip my zipper just to make sure when I put this down, my zipper won't be twisted. Before I go ahead and unzip that again. All right, then we're going to pull our pieces right sides together, making sure we are matching up our centers. Now we're going to take this machine and we're going to sew this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, same as we did for the exterior. Do not leave a turning hole on this end. So start in that same stitch, sew, and end in that same stitch. Once you're done sewing at the bottom, now it's time to sew up the sides to complete our lining. You're going to place this right side up, add double-sided tape at those side raw edges, place on your side gusset, and sew same as we did for the other sides. Okay, and because we trim off our side gussets earlier, they're going to align perfectly at the top. Make sure your zipper is out of the way and just double check that it is not twisted. Okay, our lining is done. And now we want to trim off the bottom corners and open the seams at the top. If you use double-sided tape, it gets a little tricky trying to open up those seams, so just go easy. And if you like, also trim off your sides and bottom seam allowances, but do not trim off the opening in your lining. Now we're going to turn our piece right sides out. In this section, we will be finishing up our bag. We are almost done. Right now we have the lining that is right side out and the exterior that is wrong side out. I have also added double-sided tape on the right side of my exterior at the top raw edge. You do not have to do that. You can just clip all around when we add the lining to this piece. And we're going to grab our lining. We're going to place this inside. So both our pieces are right sides together. You just want to make sure your zipper panel is pushed down and out of the way. And your D-ring, you want to make sure that is also pushed down because you don't want to mistakenly sew over that. So one thing, as I am putting my lining into the exterior, I want that interior zipper pocket laying against my back slip pockets. Now you're just going to go along and match up your centers and your side seams. Again, make sure your zipper panel, your zipper, along with your D-ring, they were pushed down and out of the way. We are going to take this machine and sew along the top raw edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, we are done sewing around the top edge. Now we need to turn this piece right sides out. So you're going to reach in through that opening we left in the lining and turn your piece to the right side. And shove our lining back in there. With the lining in the back, what you want to do is roll your seam at the top and clip all around. And then before we go to our machine, at these seams here, what you can do is grab a key fob plier or something similar and just push down to flatten those seams. Okay, now we need to take this machine and top stitch or around the top at a 1/8 seam allowance. Now this is something I do because I have a flat bed machine. It's a little difficult to top stitch with your exterior outside. So what I do is to turn this piece inside out. And for me, that's easier to then top stitch. If you have a cylinder machine, it's easy. Just go ahead and top stitch all around. But for me, this is what I do. I'm going to turn this back inside out. All right, so then now I'm going to take this to the machine and top stitch all along the top edge at a 1/8 seam allowance, making sure my zipper panel is pushed down and my D-ring is also pushed down. Okay, I am at my machine, and like I said, this is so much easier with the lining side down on my feed dog and my exterior inside. I'm sewing on the exterior. All right, top stitching is done. Now I'm going to turn my piece right sides out. Look at this. We are almost there. There are just a couple more things we need to do. One is to pull the lining through the zipper pocket opening so that we can close up the lining. So you're going to reach into that opening you left in your zipper pocket and pull your lining through. Lining is out. What you want to do is match up your raw edges, clip at the top, take this back to your machine, sew your lining close at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. With your lining closed, you're going to push that back through the zipper pocket opening and into the bag. Okay, now pull out your zipper pocket lining and we're going to sew that close. So you're going to fold those raw edges in and sew at a 1/8 seam allowance to close that opening. Once you're done sewing your zipper pocket closed, you're going to push that back in. All right, last step is to zip up your top zipper here, trim that down, and add a zipper end. And we are done. This is the Breeze handbag, and I did the crossbody stripe. We have the slip pocket, the back pocket, the top zipper panel, our D-ring connector, and this cool way of doing a gusset. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you had a blast today. Comments below if you have any questions or concerns, or shoot me an email anytime.